Welcome everybody. There we go. Welcome everyone to BHAAC. It is July 20th, 2023. So let's go through the housekeeping items. So let me do what I'm supposed to do, which is spotlight. There we go. Okay. Next slide, please, Sarah. So we do have ASL interpretation for this meeting. I have spotlighted our ASL interpreters for everyone. So you should be able to see one of them at all times. I'm going to keep my eye on it and make sure as they switch across, because we're in a 3-hour meeting, that I am highlighting the right one. If you're having any trouble seeing them or accessing the interpreter, please put that in the chat. And I will do my best to support you. Next slide, please. Okay, you can also enable captions for this event since we're in Zoom. So at the bottom of your Zoom window, you can turn on subtitles. You can also select the language. You'll click the caret to the right of the button, and then that'll translate for you. Again, please message me if you're having any issues with captions for any reason. Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm going to do a quick roll call. So, Bob, Raquel, Jesse. Oh, I'm pausing a little longer on that one because I thought I saw you. Okay. Dr. Oberly.
Here.
Thank you. Nor. Seth. Dr. Ron Lee.
Present.
Great. Ash.
Present.
Thank you. Jamie Ulrich.
I'm here.
Cameron. Okay. Tasha.
Present.
Thank you. Raina.
Here.
Great. Catherine. Okay. Tina. Carolyn.
I'm here.
Thank you. Maria. Dr. Rob.
Here.
Great. Renee. Selwyn. Andrea. Okay, I'm going to do one thing really quickly. One participant joined by phone, so I just want to see if that's Catherine. So you should be able to unmute now, whoever called in on the phone. Is that you, Catherine? Okay. It may not be, which is fine. I believe Catherine is planning on joining us a little bit later if she's not on right now. Okay, next slide, please. So housekeeping items, the way Zoom is set up for webinar, right? All of our members and the BHA folks who are here to share information today are set up as panelists. So all of us can unmute at any time. You are also welcome to raise your hand as folks are sharing. For attendees who are not panelists in this Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand and that'll give me a little flag that you have a question, and during the next pause, we'll swing around to you and I can ask you to unmute. You are also welcome to, anyone can put questions into the chat or into the Q&A function on Zoom. Prior to speaking, just a reminder, identify yourself, your name, your pronouns if you want to share, etc. Chat features open, I already said that. The council and the BHA together will figure out how we respond to questions, whether those come in through the Q&A or through the chat. We do record these sessions. They are posted on the BHAAC website, usually within a couple weeks. And we also take minutes. So those are posted as well. If you have any questions or comments regarding the council itself or for the BHA specifically, you can submit those via the Contact Us website as part of the BHA, and I will put that link in the chat in just a minute. Okay, group agreements. Can you hit me one, Sarah? Thank you. So we listen and engage respectfully. Differences of opinion are natural and useful. We have an open mind. We be curious and we be bold. Everyone has an equal voice and valuable contribution. So take space, make space. Keep to time and agenda. We start and end our meetings on time. And if you're using acronyms, please either explain what they are verbally or put it in the chat so that someone can read them for you. And I need to remember this, and for all my BHA presenters, this is a healthy reminder. Try not to talk too fast. We have interpreters on for a reason, and pause in between slides so that folks have a chance to watch the interpreters and read the slide itself. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Megan Shelton, who's joined us today and has been in the last couple of BHAAC sessions. Megan, do you want to take over from here?
Sure. Thank you, Angelina. Good morning, everyone. Megan Shelton, she, her, hers. I am the Division Director for Intergovernmental and Community Engagement. Just to let you all know, as you know, I had been the interim division director since the beginning of March, and my position is now permanent as of July 8th. But with that, the name of the division has changed slightly. So it had been the Division of Strategy Planning and Engagement. So it's now been updated to be the Division of Intergovernmental and Community Engagement. And there's two sides to this division, two directors that are on this division. Angelina Kellis, that you all know, is our Director of Equity and Community Guided Practice. And then we will also have a Director of Intergovernmental Relations. And so the title of the division now kind of encompasses both of them. Angelina taking the lead on the community side, and the other director will take the lead on the intergovernmental side, but really both of them will have aspects to both in everything that they do. So just wanted to give you all that quick update, and you're free to reach out to me with any questions regarding that. And then additionally, before we get started, I wanted to find out from all of you how you would like to vote on your chair. This is new to this group. Your temporary chair for the day. Are there any volunteers or recommendations? And then we can go from there.
I'll volunteer if nobody else does.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Dr. Rob, right? Okay, sorry. I knew it when I said it wrong. Are there any other volunteers? Okay, then we can go ahead and take a vote. Please raise your hand to vote for Dr. Rob to chair this meeting. Okay,
This is
it looks like
Dr.
majority.
Overly. I couldn't find where I raised my hand yet, so I raised.
Okay,
Okay, I think we're at if not consensus, then we're definitely at quorum for the folks that are here today.
okay. Then to be mindful of time, we will go ahead and move forward. with Dr. Rob. We do have a fairly packed agenda today for our meeting. So it will start with Dr. Rob doing the meeting minute approval from June. And then it looks like member representation in other groups, the governance committee update, and then a rules update, commissioners briefing, and BHAAC discussion to include care coordination and crisis services. And I want to speak on that for just a minute. As we move forward with this division, this group, all of you, is a huge priority for me. You are our lived experience. You have so much expertise that we need. We need you to advise some really important things for us as we move forward. So as you'll hear later today in the commissioner's briefing, are two focus points that we really need your advising on are care coordination and crisis services. And you heard about both of those things at our last meeting. And so you'll see them here again, and you'll continue to see them because we wanted to ensure that we are hearing your feedback and able to take your feedback into all that we're doing as we are quickly trying to meet deadlines and ensure quick follow through on these things. So following the commissioner's briefing will be public comment, and then a quick presentation on universal contracting provisions, followed by BHAAC work group updates, and then BHAAC public feedback form, and then the BHA inaugural equity action plan, which Angelina has worked so hard on during the month of June to get that quickly, best that we could get in a 1 month time period. And it is not perfect, but the good news is we can continue to build on it and continue to revise it. So it will only get better with time. All right, with that, I will hand it over to you, Dr. Rob.
Okay, hi, everybody. So I'll do my best to carry the torch and freestyle my way through this. So I'm assuming everybody got the email with the minutes on it. So I need a motion to accept the minutes for the last meeting.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Tasha Conquer, I second that motion.
So moved. Okay, accepted. So now looking at this, we're going to move into the contract provisions. And so are we going to play the video? Or are we just going to?
Sarah, can you hit the next slide for me? Okay, so this one, Dr. Rubb, was the conversation we had started last session, identifying what you folks are calling liaisons to other task forces or councils or whatever, right? Whatever the situation calls for. So maybe this is something that we want to put off to the next meeting. I know Bob had some leftover remaining things to talk about here.
Yeah, I think out of respect for Bob's, his vision of what he was planning on doing with this, and I know that it kind of got left up in the air. So I'm okay with waiting if everybody else is.
You want to do a show of hands or thumbs up, members, let us know. Great, I'll make a note in here that we're going to move this to the next session. Okay, Sarah, next slide, please. Thank you.
Hey, Tasha, so this is all you. Do you want to give us an update on the governance subcommittee?
Hi, Tasha Conquer here. Update on governance subcommittee. We submitted the final document to you guys, I believe. I don't know if that was submitted. Morena would know because we worked on that. We polished it up And we were gonna submit it for vote today. I don't know how that's gonna go since our chair and co-chair isn't present. I'm a little lost. It threw me off. I was all prepared. So, but other than that, we finished that up. We polished it. Yeah, got excited. So I don't know where it stands right now. So I think it needs to go for a vote and then we can go on from there. Thank you.
So I think this is, I hate to table stuff because I know that we are trying to get a lot accomplished, but without our chair and our co-chair, like, is this something else we want to table till we have all of the members present?
To be honest with you, I would love to have this go for vote for the whole committee because Bob and Raquel are already on board and they know about the document. We've had discussions throughout this time period of our council creating, or the subcommittee creating this. So I want to get it for vote and get it going. So it shows that we got something done. Like I said, with the bylaws subcommittee there, we were wanting to get this pushed out, voted on back in April, put out or presented to you guys back in April and get voted on in June, and we had to push that out. So I say I'm gonna just put in the motion that we go for vote for this on our bylaws
So,
documents today.
so Tasha, let me just ask this, is there anything new that you added that we need to be made aware of, something brand new that's in it?
So we did make one change to the document, major change in that. And that was, let me pull it up right here. It had to do with, I think it was Article 2, subsection B and D. B said about federal statutory limitation or statutory guidelines on that. And we had to take it out because because BHAAC, Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council, is not on at a federal council statute. So we don't have to follow federal statutes. We have to follow state statutes that we put in there. So we just removed B, or let me pull the document. Sorry, guys.
Can I jump in for just a
Yeah,
second?
go ahead.
Dr. Rob. So I know that we want to get this passed. I also know that we only have 8 members, even without Raquel and Bob here, there are only 8 BHAAC members. So I don't think we have a quorum, even if we wanted to vote.
Yeah.
I know that's frustrating. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So we'll put that off. Okay. So I will take that off the table. We will not be going for vote today. We'll push it out for another vote. So we are definitely going for vote in August or the next meeting. That is we're going to have this in vote. So, and I will push for that. So, back to what I was saying. So we're not going for vote. I'm just going to give you an update on what we did with that document then. Template. Sorry. Template. Here we go. So we took out on there, it's under section 2. Nope. Under section 3. So no, it's not even in there. Angelina, can you help me find this? Because I know we did this and I don't know.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Are you just looking for the changes?
Yeah, for the changes, Morena, the last meeting we were in, that was it. I don't know exactly. I know we just polished it the last meeting. The meeting before that, that's when we finished it. We used this last meeting just to polish it up and make sure wording was all good and stuff like that.
Yep, I am going to, Sarah, I'm going to steal the sharing ability from you so that I can bring the bylaws up. And then, let's see, let me make it a little bigger so people can actually read it. Okay. So this is the final. I apologize. I think I might have left this out of the prep material email because it was already so big. That's totally all on me. So I will get it out as part of our follow-up so that all the members have access and can read over it again. I know, Tasha, that you folks changed some of the language up here, I believe. Somewhere under organizations. Work groups. There was some rearranging. Because there was some content underneath work groups that actually had to do with, right, term limits. And then I believe this section was updated.
Yes, that's correct.
Sorry, I'm scrolling fast.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, quorum, engagement with the public. Okay, procedures. So this is what I would say, procedures, rules of order. I think this is the last section that there were quite a few changes. So folks want to definitely make sure that they're rereading through that.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar?
I see so many documents, like there's so many versions of this on my drives. I gotta go through them because we've been working on this as a live document. So there was under the statutory regulations, I believe, I'm trying to recall, please be with me. Taylor Swift got my mind blown. So I'm a little off, just let you know. Amazing concert. There was, there we go. There was the
Take it off.
there was a Seth, do you remember where we were? I'm gonna call on my other members to help me remember.
We were at the last article, like kind of towards the bottom.
So these are the last two.
Hmm.
5 and 6.
So we did finish that. We read through all of that the last meeting. So the only thing that we corrected from the meeting when we presented this to now is we just took out the federal statutory guidelines on that, where we are not, that's a part of the BHA for federal, not a part of BHAAC. So that is the only thing that we changed, was taking out the part where it said about federal statutory guidelines and just left in the state, because we have nothing to do with federal. That's it. Sorry about that. Now I got my memory jogged, so I apologize about that confusion there,
Yeah,
if I confused anybody.
There was some like in J and H, I think in Article 2, there was some
Thank you.
changes made.
Was that the wording? We did the wording, right?
I believe so. They were just like, right, HI. Oh, I guess we got rid of J and put in.
Okay, so
Oh.
I will say this, yep, so Marina's messaging me.
Thank you.
Even though
Marina
she's-
knows a lot. She's
even
been
though
on
she's
this, so
supposed to be
without her, I'm
out,
a little
she's
lost.
supposed to be out today, so she's joining from the phone while she's driving to the mountains. Thank you, Marina.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the new pieces are internet and external work groups, reapplication, and compensation. So internal work groups here. And external work group engagement. And compensation. Okay, so I'm gonna highlight these pieces specifically. If members want to read through the whole thing again, that'd be great. If you don't want to read through the whole thing, I'm trying to highlight the places where we know that we made lots of changes, so you can see that clearly.
And I do know that we had put up for vote, I believe in June, to put in for compensation, for increase to compensation. We haven't heard anything back about that. Has there been any further follow through with finding out about all the questions that we had, the compensation, the letter to the commissioner, all the other things that we're supposed to do that kind of fell through the cracks?
Yep, so I am going to Megan. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I put my hand up, but I feel like people can't see it. Thank you, Tasha. So I do have an update on two of those things. So for the compensation, unfortunately, it does have to stay the same. We're not able to increase it. And then we also, the BHA does not have the capacity at this point with all of the other deadlines and things, initiatives that we have to get into action that we actually need your advising on, to have and support monthly 3-hour meetings. I know that in legislation, this group was legislatively required to meet only quarterly, but we do feel that we can, at this point, accommodate every other month, just not monthly. So a bit of a compromise there. And then Angelina, I will let you talk a little bit about our plan with moving forward. I know we talked about, we do have to meet in August still. So this July meeting kind of takes place for the August meeting since it's an extra meeting, but we still have to have an hour meeting in July or in August, excuse me, to review the report. And then I believe our cadence for meetings will then start again in September, but Angelina, I'll let you speak more on that.
Okay, so switching back to every other month, right? July, this session will be a full session. Let me move y'all's videos. I apologize. I'm trying to do like way too many things. Let me just stop sharing. This is like way too distracting. There we go. Okay, so this is a full session, and then September, because we're switching back to every other month, will be a full session. We have to have a session in August because the report writing group will have the report ready for everyone to vote on, or all the members to review and vote on before the September 1st deadline. My suggestion, or to like the BHA's suggestion, is that we do an hour meeting in August. We can vote on the report and provide feedback and vote on bylaws. So that's my initial suggestion. Seth, I see your hand up, and Tasha, I know, I see you. So how about Seth and then Tasha? And then
Yeah.
Dr. Rob, I feel like I took over. Now I'm gonna mute myself and then you do the leading.
Yeah, so that's okay. One of the questions I was gonna ask before we call on Seth or Tasha, is this something that has to be voted on in a public forum, or is this something that can be passed through like having a meeting before the next one, or can we do it through email? Because I know Tasha has been working on this and probably wants to turn the page on it. So is that something we can do?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I can double check with our policy team what we could, if you're talking about voting on the bylaws, right?
Yes.
Okay, we could probably do a member like email vote. And then we would just want to say in the next public meeting that they passed or they didn't pass for some reason. So I think we have to share the final information out publicly, but we could do a vote via email if that's what folks want to do.
Okay. All right, Seth?
Would it be possible, like, if we as a council made a motion for the BHA to ask the legislature to include more funding for council members when they go back into session next January, and make it every month with like can we make a motion to like propose that, to like have the commissioner like go and ask the legislature for like more funding? Or I mean, I'm fine with like the going back to the every other month for now, but with all the work that we're doing, we do need a monthly meeting. There's just no simple way of saying we can do this in 3 hours every 2 months. That's ridiculous.
So I'm gonna Megan, please jump in. When Megan says capacity right now, what she means is there's only one of me. And Marina is like the second BHAAC person at the BHA. And as you folks know, the BHA is still in the place where we are at 20% capacity, right? We have 80% of our staff that have not been hired yet. And so at some point we would, in theory, in however many years it takes us to get up to 100% capacity, be able to support that monthly meetings. Right now, this is less in terms of meeting cadence. This is less about whether we have funding to do it and more about we just don't have the people. The amount of prep work and making sure everything's up online. I mean, I know folks noticed we didn't have this meeting on the events calendar till earlier this week. It's because just with all the other things that we're working on, you know, things fall through the cracks, and that's not how I want it to be. I know that's not how you want it to be either. And then Megan, I'm going to let you jump in. Seth, if you're talking about going to the Joint Budget Committee and asking for dollars in terms of compensation, I'm going to let Megan jump in on that one because I don't know exactly how all that works.
Thanks, Angelina. I think that that's something we would have to revisit with the commissioner as well. I'm just looking at all of the different things and guidelines for this advisory board. But to Angelina's point, our capacity is very limited. And so I do want to apologize to you all that this meeting was not as organized as they have been in the past. And I think that was very reflective of us not being able to keep up with a monthly meeting cadence. But absolutely, we will make it happen for every other month. I think that still stretches us, but we'll do it because we recognize the need for this group to meet every other month. And to Seth's point, there's a lot. And so we have to ensure that we're being as efficient as possible with the time that we do have, that we're staying on our agenda, we're staying organized, and really being able to cover all of the things in each meeting that we need to.
Tosh, you have your hand up?
Yes, I would like to say, my comment on the pay, compensation, I kind of figured that wasn't going to happen. Seth, they can't even pay us. We're still waiting on checks. Still waiting on checks from April, still waiting on checks from June. You can't even pay us anyway. So who cares about compensation? For two, about not having the capacity, that's the problem. Not having the people, that's the problem. The problem, not having the people for care, not having the people to educate us, not having enough people to get us to where we need to be, because we're out here looking like a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off. And it's not okay, guys. It's not transparent. And this is looking like just set up for failure. And I'm being completely authentic and like it's set up for failure. How are we supposed to get this done by these deadlines and by statutory and federal, state, and federal statutory guidelines? We're falling behind. We're falling behind. You guys are not being transparent with us, and you're not taking accountability. There are some things that are being taken accountable, but not everything. We're still waiting on pay. Still waiting on answers why there's still shortages on medications. Questions that I have asked months ago still have not been answered. And I'm getting frustrated, and I worked my butt off to set the precedents for the change. And administration is failing us.
Right. Okay, so I will say this, Angelina, since you've come on and we have had a lot of movement forward, and I think that, and I appreciate where Tasha is coming from, but I do feel like we've had forward movement and we've had more conversations than we've had in the past. I do think there's still some you know, there's some frustrations for what was going on before, and now we're moving forward. And so I just want to say, we appreciate all the hard work that you're putting, you know, that you're putting into this. And, you know, I understand 100% Tasha's frustrations and where she's at, but at the same time, like, I do see, and I think most of us do also see that you all are trying your best to keep us moving forward. So, you know, in the spirit of that, if nobody else has anything to say, let's move forward again to the next.
I would just like to remind Dr. Rob, Tasha's pronouns are they, them, theirs.
Okay, sorry.
She.
Thank you,
Okay.
Seth.
And then also, you know, while I keep bringing this up, it's like, I won't be able to commit to weekly or bi-weekly meetings cut into my job hours, like for the governance committee or the leadership committee or executive committee or any other committees, if we're not going to be meeting monthly. Like, I just can't keep up with like volunteering, like not just volunteering my time, but like volunteering my time when I'm supposed to be working during business hours. Like, I can't do that. I have a limited capacity to engage with my peers in this council, and having it, even if we don't get paid for it, like, I feel like I'm willing to meet monthly, like as volunteer, because I feel like it's needed that we meet monthly, because like the executive committee like sets the agenda for the monthly meeting. We meet monthly, maybe we get paid every other month, maybe that could be a motion, but like we need to meet more than once every 2 months, because we're just beginning to get the bylaws done. We're just beginning to like create like advisory stuff. Like, we're just about to advise the BHA on all these other things that they want us to advise on and get started and finish and deadlines and whatnot. We can't do it like an hour in August. That's ridiculous. So I'm willing, I can't speak for other people, but I'm willing to meet once a month from 9 to 12 on the third Thursday to also keep the consistency of the meetings that we voted on last session about every third Thursday, and the executive committee every fourth Thursday. I'm willing to do that. I can't speak for others. For me, it's more than just the compensation. It's just about getting things done and getting things up to 100% capacity. But I can make that time every third Thursday from 9 to 12 each month, because that's what we were planning on doing. I can schedule that into my job. Like, I can schedule that into my life, but I can't like expect like having enough time to like finish everything you guys want us to finish 3 hours every other month. Like, I just can't.
I thank Seth and Tasha, sorry about not remembering your pronouns. And then Carolyn, you have your hand up.
You're muted.
I just want to say that I'm actually here for the work. I mean, getting paid is really nice, and it's a very, I really appreciate that. But I also understand how important consistency is. And I'm willing to volunteer whatever I do to stay consistent. Because what I know with consistency, it helps us to move forward better. But it's hard being patient. And I understand when everything's new, the BHA is new, you know, we're new. And so sometimes we have to just be patient with ourselves and others, you know, and we're doing the best that we can with the limits that we have. And so I am just grateful for what we do have and for the BHA that is here, and others that are here to support us through this. So thank you.
And I'm with Seth too, and I understand what Angelina was saying, that it's also capacity on their end. if we can work that out, I agree. I would volunteer as well monthly if that's what was needed. So I'm also grateful that we're doing this. And you know, just to respond to what Tasha asked, Angelina, do you know where we're at with the checks?
I was just messaging with Megan about this. So I know, at least with the folks that I met with after the last meeting, we got your invoices to you pre-filled and signed. If that didn't happen, please let me know. I do not work on the check processing side, so we're gonna have to dig into that and figure out. From my side, our invoices have been submitted. And so now it's just the government processing and printing of the checks and mailing. So Megan is going to help me escalate that and see who we need to talk to about getting a status of those things. I know the BHA on the government side needs to close out the fiscal year 23, which meant we should have been sending checks to you, right? Like at the end of June. We have a little bit of wiggle room there. Well, like through July 10th, we can kind of take invoices for work that happened in June. But a lot of these, to Tasha's point, in April, right? If you haven't gotten a check for April yet, we need to figure out what's holding things up. Megan.
I just wanted to add and reassure you all that this is absolutely a priority for us. We do want to ensure that you are receiving your checks in a timely manner. And I know Angelina has worked diligently to ensure that we've updated those invoices to make the process as easy as possible. And Angelina and I will connect with our accounting team, hopefully this week, probably next week for sure, to determine where all of the checks are at and if there's anything, any delinquent checks that we need to get sent out as soon as possible. That is a priority. And so I do appreciate you all bringing that to our attention.
They do come because I've received about 3 or 4 checks after I've submitted my invoice. Usually I wait, I forget about sending in the invoice till like a week or 2 after the meeting. And then like a week or 2 after I send in the invoice, like I get a check in the mail and I send the invoice to something like payments at Colorado.state email address. And there's a gentleman there who like, if he can't read my invoice, he'll let me know and I'll send it in a different format or whatever. But I have been getting the checks. I'm all caught up on the checks, and except there's one in the mail from, I guess, June, I think. So they do come, and it does take a little bit of time. When I first started doing the invoices for the check, I didn't do invoices until 6 months later for like the first 6 months. And I was able to get, you know, all of those invoices covered with one check for $300. So it does happen. They are working on it. But I still want to have this discussion about volunteering meeting once a month. If Angelina, if you and the BHA has capacity to like at least let us meet the 3rd Thursday of the month and just like keep up on like, so we can all keep up on what you guys are doing. And so we can be advising you guys like in the best way that we can with our lived experience. And you know, it's not so much for me, the compensation. I mean, yes, it's nice, but I need the consistency. We're just getting up and started and we have a report due in September. Like we can't just meet 1 hour in August. Like,
so Angelina, I have a question. I didn't see anybody else's hand up. I have a question. One of the things that's happening with us is that because we're limited with so many members meeting, right? If so many members meet, then it's an official meeting and that has to be done in public, right? Is what I'm understanding. And so the frustrating, sorry, that's on me. So the frustrating part of that for me is that going back to what Tasha said, we're running around like a chicken with our head cut off, but it's because we're having to work things out in public. And that just feels like, so I don't know what the answer is to that. Do we have like a group chat? Can the group meet without the BHA so we could work some of these out? Because I feel like personally, and if anybody agrees, we're missing out on opportunities to advise because we're having to do housekeeping in public. And I know like it's extremely frustrating for me because I want to earn the money that we're getting paid by advising the BHA from a lived experience. And I feel like because we're not able to meet without leadership all the time, and if we do, we have to do it in public, it just is it's a really odd thing. I feel like personally, we haven't had a chance to advise because we've been working things out. And it's kind of like you don't want to see behind the door before the product's done, but we've been making the cake the whole time. And it's been a little difficult when everybody's watching us bake the cake while we're dropping eggs, while we're like finding out the milk's spoiled or that the butter is not there. Like, I mean, I would like to be able to talk about and advise without having to do some of this housekeeping in public.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have Megan jump in here in a second. Technically, BHAAC members can meet without BHA representation, but then that's a different level of coordination because your meetings still need to be public. So someone in the BHAAC member group, right, would have to record the sessions, make sure that the links are somewhere where everybody can find them, which might mean the BHA posts them on the event calendar. You all could then meet, and then you'd need to like send me the recording so I can make sure they're like up on the website. But that also means that the support factor isn't there, right? Like I remember when we were talking about the report writing group, there was some concern like, how do we facilitate that? And who's gonna like help us document, right? Which is totally fine. I'm sure you folks can figure that piece out. I just trying to be as transparent as possible in terms of like what we do have the people for and what we don't. I would say group chat is probably pushing that rule that says that you can, you know, right? If you're conducting business, then it needs to be in public. So
yeah.
go ahead.
So I was just going to say, so if that's the case, all of us that are here now, let's organize and get together with, of course, Bob and Raquel, our leaders. Let's follow up with them and see if we could do this. I think that's something that's 100% manageable by us. And then instead of having a conversation where we're going back and forth about checks, it's just a one sentence like, hey, we didn't get our checks. Okay, move on. And because we'll be well organized and we'll already be like hashing it out behind closed doors. So we'll work on that. And I know, Tasha, you speak to Bob and Raquel a lot. So if you're able to reach out to them, I will as well in email. And so, okay, let's move forward. Everybody's good.
I just wanted to chime in really quick, Dr. Rob. If you all, I know you all have been at this a lot longer than me. You all have been at this for a year now. But if you all could give us a little bit of grace and patience and see how it goes as we move forward, going back to the cadence of every other month, but really shoring up our agenda and ensuring that we are sticking to our agenda every time. I think if we can be more efficient in the 3 hours time that we have, we will all be pleasantly surprised with how much we can accomplish during that time.
Okay.
And so I'd really like to see if we can give that a shot, and just with some optimism. And I know that can be challenging, but I really believe in this group. I really believe in the things that you can advise us on. And I want to ensure that we are meeting deadlines and we are getting the advising we need on those priority items that I mentioned earlier, and you'll hear more about from Commissioner Barnes during the update a little bit later in the meeting.
I would like to make a proposal that we meet for the regular third Thursday in August for 3 hours to go over the report that we're submitting. I know you guys think we can do it in an hour, but with someone with lived experience of my own mental health issues, I'm not able to go through a whole year report in an hour to send to the legislature just by meeting for 1 hour. And it doesn't matter how big the agenda is or isn't, we're all going to have passionate discourse and conversation about anything on the agenda. And no matter who's like leading the meeting or chairing the meeting, we all have to have our voices heard. That's why we were chosen to be on this council. So I would like to make a motion. I don't know if the BHA can meet for 3 hours on a Thursday in August, but I would make a motion that we do meet for 3 hours in August to at least look and finish the report.
I'm not sure. I mean, is that something we want to move forward with? I hear you, Seth, but is that something that we're able to do? Or that the BHA is open for?
I think like I mentioned earlier, we really need to try to limit that to an hour, as we had a meeting in June, we're having a meeting in July. If we can do an hour in August, then we'll have our next 3-hour meeting in September.
Can we meet without the BHA? Like we'll meet for 2 hours and you guys come in and like the first hour or the last hour and advise us or whatever. Because yeah, I want to know what's in the report and what we're reporting and going through it, not just in an hour.
Right, so if I'm understanding what Angelina said, that's where we are able to do whatever we want as long as we could organize internally. We would have to record that and send that, is what I'm understanding. So I think, Seth, you're right on point with saying that we could meet 2 hours before and then maybe a break and then meeting with the BHA. I think that's an excellent idea. And like you said, that way when you're reporting, you've already brainstormed and gone through and it's fresh on your mind. If I'm interpreting that correctly, then Tasha?
You're on mute, Tasha.
Since we voted on, sorry about that, Tasha Conquer here, they, them. Since we voted on the monthly meetings, the third Thursday, is that what it was? The third Thursday of every month between 9 and 12, don't we have to take that back for a vote? Since we already voted that in last meeting.
I mean, yes, like you all could vote again. I think what you were voting on is the recommendation that you move to monthly meetings, knowing that BHA folks support. So we can bring it back to a vote. We don't have a quorum here today, so voting today wouldn't be helpful. I think, so Dr. Rob, I will do what I need to on Megan and I will do what we need to on our side to make sure that it would work to do 2 hours solo, just BHAAC members, and then have BHA folks come in at the last hour. I think to Megan's point, that won't be something we can do a lot of, because it's still essentially like, you know, we're coming to the meeting every month if y'all decide to move forward with that. But I understand that this is a unique circumstance where there's a September 1st deadline for a report. So I think we're willing to figure out how to help support and make that happen for this August session, because we know this is like important and it's the first time y'all are doing it. So we want to provide that support.
If the committee who's working on the report brings it to all of us before, like submits it in writing or sends us an email, and then the first 2 hours we kind of go over it together, and then you guys come in at the last hour and kind of like tell us what you recommend, or you hear what we recommend, and that way the committee can go back and finish the report or whatever. I think that's the best option. And I would like to make a motion that we do that, but we don't have a quorum, so we can't vote on it. So I think we should do that when we have a quorum, or at least via email, that we do that structure in August.
Okay, just Megan put in the chat that our next topic started at 9:55. So not to be disrespectful, but let's keep moving forward.
Head north toward East 13th Avenue, then turn left onto East.
Somebody needs to head north on East 13th Avenue.
Sarah, can you bring our slides back up, please? I think we were at, yeah, we can jump into, this is just the update, which we've just been talking about. Okay, so rules update. I hope folks saw it in the email. We're going to start doing this more consistently because I know there was feedback from BHAAC members that all of a sudden there were rules meetings and like you weren't kind of updated on what was going on. So we're going to try and keep 5 to 10 minutes in every agenda so you have an update on what's going on with the rules. I'm going to turn it over to Victoria, who should be on.
I'm here. Hi, thank you. My name is Victoria Lasky. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Safety Net Associate Director at the Behavioral Health Administration. And just want to say that I really appreciate the invitation to be here today and your ongoing interest in continuing to hear these updates. As a rule nerd myself, I'm very excited that you all have that interest as well to keep up with what we're doing in the regulatory space. Next slide, please. So today I'm here to give a brief update about our regulatory rewrite and our timeline and where we're at in that. I know I met with you all specifically last month and also saw a number of you at our stakeholder meetings. So just wanted to provide an update here. So we engaged in doing a bunch of stakeholder events from May through June. 23rd was our last day, which was an opportunity to talk to the people of Colorado, people receiving services, providers, other state agencies about what are our plans with this regulatory update that updates our licensing, designation, and approval processes. So we were talking to folks about what we are proposing. We were answering questions about those rules, and we were listening to feedback and then incorporating changes in the rules due to that feedback in a high number of cases. So we had gone through that process of receiving that feedback through June 23rd. And then my team, the Safety Net licensing managers, integrated a lot of that feedback into our rule draft. And the rules were sent off for legal review, and that started on July 5th. So as part of the rulemaking process, we need to have our attorneys at the Attorney General's office read through those rules and make sure that those are constitutional, they are legal, they are within the BHA's authority. So the Attorney General's office is diligently reading those rules right now. They were sent at the end of June. So we are currently going back and forth with them to make sure that these rules are ready to move forward. There will be a new version of rules post-legal review available in August. Then we will have our first reading at the State Board of Human Services in September. So the rulemaking process for the Department of Human Services is that we have 2 readings with the State Board, and they are the group that has the authority to bang the gavel and say, yes, these rules are adopted, or these rules are adopted if you make these changes. So they really have that authority to, it's called promulgate the rules. So we will do our first reading at the State Board of Human Services in September. Then we intentionally left October. We're not going to be going to State Board in October, so we have an opportunity to make any changes that State Board requests, or that would probably be as a result of testimony that's given at the State Board hearings. So just so you all know, these State Board hearings are public meetings. Individuals can sign up to provide testimony in the meeting, speak for a few minutes about whether they support the rules, whether there's a change they would like to see, and then also an opportunity to provide written testimony. So saying that the stakeholder engagement kind of concluded in June has a little asterisk to it, because we will continue to be able to receive feedback through this formal rulemaking process with the State Board of Human Services. So then we have our second reading in November, and that will be our hopeful adoption with an effective date of January 1st of 2024. This is the same information about timeline, just represented a little differently. I'm more of a visual person, so this may be helpful to see this kind of laid out in more of a calendar type format. So again, re-engaged with stakeholders in May and June, integrated that feedback. Currently, we are in that little red box of legal review. We will be filing our notice with the Secretary of State, another technical part of the rulemaking process, at the end of this month. And again, in August, those revised rules will be available. And then we've got our little purple row of State Board of Human Services with that rules effective date of January 1st. You. So a little more detail about that May and June stakeholder engagement. We had a meeting almost every day for 2 months to really get a chance to dig in and have conversations about what's in the rules, what's the impact going to be. So that included 6, we called them town halls, reviewing the content. So those were more presentation heavy and really talking through what is in this section of the rules. We do have those recorded and they're available on the BHA's YouTube channel. If anyone's interested in what are the rules around outpatient services, what are the rules around a 2765 designation for mental health holds, we do have those recorded and available if anyone's interested. We held 4 lived experience listening sessions, 2 in English, 1 in American Sign Language, 1 in Spanish, where we were listening to the experiences of those who have accessed behavioral health care in Colorado, really listening to what's working well and what's not working. And also, of course, had our meeting with you all, BHAAC. And in addition to that, our in-person listening sessions throughout the state, another opportunity to just hear about what's going well and what should be going better. Denver, Breckenridge, Durango, Canyon City, Pueblo, Grand Junction, and Fort Collins. We had office hours where people were able to join virtually and ask us any and all questions about the rules, as well as offer feedback. We also offered meetings with targeted provider groups and advocates. So substance use disorder providers, withdrawal management providers, providers with the 2765 mental health hold designation. And we also had our feedback survey and email inbox where we received written comments. I just want to acknowledge to this group that I know a lot of you attended these events, and I really appreciate your time and engagement in these various meetings. And I really appreciate you investing your time in these regulations that we hope will bring forth some really important changes to the behavioral health system in Colorado. In total, we received and considered 1,193 comments. So those will be available once we file that notice. We have those in a table format of all of the comments and questions we received. And then we've drafted responses to each of those comments and questions that will be available again in August if you're interested in looking at that. Next slide. So some major changes I wanted to highlight. Again, we made a number of changes throughout the draft, but some big ones include we are reworking our fee schedule to lower fees. This was a particularly challenging issue because the behavioral health entity license by state law must be what's called cash funded. So essentially the fees should be paying for the work that goes toward the licensing. We carried over this current fee schedule from the Department of Public Health and Environment that currently holds this license. which was $1,750 for a base license, plus additional endorsements for outpatient or inpatient. And then additional fees for changes and fines, et cetera. And we received a lot of feedback about how prohibitive and how expensive these fees are, especially for smaller sized providers. So the BHA, we're still working on crunching the numbers and hope to have those exact numbers here soon, but we are lowering these fees in response to that feedback. And on our side, doing the work to figure out how do we lower these fees and also meet that statutory call to be cash funded. We incorporated we did a little bit of reorganizing. We received some feedback that the way we organized the chapters of rule was a bit confusing. So we did combine some chapters, make it a little bit easier to follow, incorporated chapters that were only applicable to a certain type of provider, comprehensive safety net providers, into a single chapter. There was some confusion there. And then also removing the requirement for Facility Guidelines Institute or FGI review. This is an architectural review process that the health department uses. And the feedback that we received from stakeholders was that this was a very administratively burdensome process, very costly, very time consuming, and didn't really seem to add any value. Now, I want to be clear that this is not fire and life safety code type things. This is more some building specific requirements, including some things such as having separate entrances for mental health versus other types of services that we also philosophically didn't quite agree with. So we have removed this requirement for this particular review process, which also should make things easier for especially smaller providers in our system. And next slide, I think that was all I had. So I'm happy to take any questions or feedback.
Yes, hi. I just wonder, I appreciate all the work you've done with making it easy to understand and easy to read. I would like to see these 3 slides put somewhere on the website or sent out in a commissioner's email with like all the mental health providers, whatever, that so that they understand when this schedule of things is going to happen, so that if they want to participate in those meetings or those workshops or whatever you want to call them, that they have the opportunity to do that as well. Because it's not transparent enough to like just post it on a website and be like, whoever shows up, shows up. Like, I'm sure there would be providers within at least the agency I work with that would want to be a part of the audience and hearing these rules and the readings of the rules, and the fact that you had so many comments and to read some of the comments and, you know, and stuff like that. So I feel like these 3 slides, like, it doesn't even have to be like, you know, fancy or anything, but these 3 slides can be emailed out to like mental health centers and providers so that they have kind of like what we just saw in a 5-minute presentation.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Previously, what we have done to get the word out about this is we included this in like a special newsletter that included our whole newsletter list, all of our licensed and designated providers, anyone who had previously been engaged with us. And I think that that's a really great point, that we want to just not only put it on the website, but also distribute it. So I think I can definitely work with our communications team to get this out in next month's newsletter. Especially, I think an excellent point is I want to make sure that everyone who's interested in the State Board of Human Services hearings, where there's an opportunity to give testimony, I want to make sure everyone who wants to be involved with that is. And I think that that's a really important piece that we can make sure we are communicating widely. And also, I see a little bit going on in the chat here from Angelina, and thank you, Mel, for confirming that. We do have a specific newsletter for anyone interested in this type of information. I wonder, Mel, could I bother you to put the link to sign up for that newsletter in this chat, just in case anyone here falls into that category? But I really appreciate that point, Seth. And I think a good reminder as we move into this next phase of the process that we need to make sure that we are getting this message out broad and wide. So thank you for that. Oh, and thank you, Mel, for putting that link in the chat.
I would also say thank you for the BHA for coming to Pueblo. So we often get left out. And so I know we appreciated it. And it is a lot easier to have conversations in person.
Yeah, I really appreciated seeing you there, Dr. Rob. And this was not a competition, but just want to say that Pueblo was our best attended in-person meeting. So I think that showed that you all are very, very invested in wanting to show up and be there in person, and really appreciated your time there.
Okay, I think we're ready to move to Commissioner briefing.
So I think, Megan, I believe you're still on. Great. Commissioner Barnes, I was just looking for your name. I know that you were doing an on-site visit today. Are you officially up and running on your computer?
I
Maybe.
am.
Okay, good. There we go. Great.
Greetings, everybody. I've been listening for a bit. Yeah, this morning I went and toured Aurora Mental Health Center. Super interesting. They have a whole plethora of programs for people in Aurora, and the one I toured today was their Center for People Experiencing Homelessness. Amazing work that they're doing. So very motivated coming off that visit. But unfortunately, it makes me in my car on my phone for this meeting. Just making sure everyone can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. Okay. Now, do you want to go to the next slide? Thanks for your good discussion today. And Dr. Rob, I assume you were appointed the chair of the meeting, right?
Yeah, I appointed myself and they just agreed. So thank you for letting me do that.
Normally that happens when someone's out in the bathroom. They're like, let's pick, oh, the guy that's not in the room. Yeah, thank you. This is going very smoothly today, so I appreciate it. Yeah, I want to spend most of my time doing an open Q&A. We haven't had a lot of time to dialogue on some of the recommendations you guys have already come up with. And I know there's a massive report due in September, and that's the main deliverable. But I don't want to lose sight that I could use some feedback now and take advantage of our time together to get some of that. I will say there's two areas where, well, let me back up. We just spent a couple days doing an offsite with our leadership, really trying to get the systems put in place, like how to operationalize the BHA. And that's everything from what dashboards are we going to have? How are we going to manage performance in terms of outcome measures? How are we going to organize and structure so we make sure that we're focused on the most important things and we're accountable to the state? How do we maintain our transparency? How do we keep our focused on all communities having a voice at the table? You know, really focus on diverse communities, being able to be part of our work we're doing. And one of the things we came up with is that we really need to focus. And we have so many ideas and so many things going on that it's impossible to do them all justice. So we just have to phase things. Like you guys all do that in your business and your personal life. I've had laundry on my bedroom floor for about 2 weeks, but I just said, I can't do it this week, but I'll do it this weekend. You have to phase what's most important in the moment. And right now, two of the things that are super important to us is our care coordination and our crisis services. we have other things, setting up the BHA in an equitable and transparent and dynamic way is one of our other priorities. But right now, we have massive deliverables that are going to make people's lives better, and the reason why the BHA was put in place. And a lot of those are around the crisis centers, or crisis services, and the care coordination. You guys all know we're rewriting universal contracting for all of our community behavioral health organizations and substance use disorder partners. And so figuring that out is the kind of business that you're going to see the leadership team focused on. I realize we gave out $150 million already from mostly through our grant making body. And I'm incredibly proud of what the team's done, but we also have so much work to do, and we're 118 people. So I think some people are quite surprised to see how small we are, because we have a huge mission and a huge lift that we need to do. And frankly, there's people waiting in hospitals, waiting for a place to discharge, that are looking to us. There's families in crisis that are looking for us to have care coordination set up. There's community behavioral health centers who know their business model is changing with the work that we're doing, and they want more information from us so they have the time to not have any disruption of service. So there's the lift on us is huge for 118 people. And the only way through this is to prioritize and say, here's what we can do right now. And all ideas are good ideas. All the things that we were meant to do, that we want to do, that are aspirational, some of those are just going to have to wait until other things happen. So with that, I really want to ask if I can get, not today, because I understand the agenda that was put together was one more about what you guys wanted to talk about, but I want to come back and tell you, this is what I need input on. As you're an advisory board to the commissioner, we are so lucky to have you. And these are the things that we really need lived experience, input, feedback, and voice on. Doesn't mean we don't need it on other things, but these are two things that keep me up at night, as well as 100 other things, but these are two priorities that keep me up at night. So on that, I'm really hoping we could, as we go forward, schedule some of the meetings to be focused on not just us updating you on these topics, but us hearing from you on it. You know, there's lots of ways to do that. One way is we record the presentation in advance and we send it out, and you all take 30 minutes with your morning coffee or whatnot and listen to it. So that process has happened before, and that allows us to leave our meetings for interaction and dialogue and listening. So just a suggestion as we move forward. So Tashka, I can't see your tech. Can someone read
Yeah.
out loud the chat?
Yes, this is Tasha Conquer, they, them. I was just in the chat, I asked, are these the two of the three main points that need to be in the report that are keeping you up at night?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
The main priorities we're working on, of course, are these two. This is where we could use a lot of lived experience. The third one that was on my list was input into the rulemaking process. And Victoria just did a great job updating on where we are and the ways we can, that you can continue to participate, but the formal time for being able to get new ideas and really stakeholder this has closed, because we have to write the rules and we send them to the Attorney General, they review them, then it goes through state board. So due to timeline, that window has closed in terms of having huge impact, but I know a lot of you participated through the mechanisms we put together. So I appreciate that. Some of the other things we're working on, universal contracting, we're working quite closely with providers and sister agencies to make sure those are happening as envisioned. for the state, but these are two that are still being in the creation stage and still needing a lot of input on them. So I wanted to kind of frame, if I would say in what I would prioritize and needing your feedback on, it would be these two topics. Whether it's a feedback session in one of your meetings or in your report, or whatever mechanism you want to give, we'd really appreciate that. So I'm going to pause there and ask if there's any questions or any response to this.
Hi, this is Seth Watkins.
Hi, Seth.
I work at Aurora Mental Health, so
Oh,
we
you
do
guys
have,
rock, man.
we do, and that's because we had a turnover in leadership about 3 or 4 years ago, and Kelly is top of the line CEO and runs a tight ship, and everybody's very inclusive of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm surprised by how many of the programs that we do have, and how many of the programs that we're just starting to get involved with, such as SUDS and more involved in substance use and abuse and treatment and stuff like that. What I would say as far as care coordination that I know that I experience and that I'm a part of, and I know we have it at Aurora Mental Health, and that is that each mental health center or organization that works with mental health or substance use and abuse should have a care council or client council or advisory council as part of the care coordination, so that those agencies have, like, even the RAIs. I sit on the Ray 3's like community membership advisory board, and I also sit on the state Medicaid board. And it's like being on councils is something that allows people with lived experience who want to make a difference in the mental health system of Colorado, or just to learn things about how operations work and stuff like that, is to have a good solid council or advisory council or voluntary council, and those councils should be compensated somehow, whether it be a gift card or a stipend or whatever.
Yep.
And I guess the mental health centers can reimburse those costs themselves, so that the BHA doesn't have to do it. And I saw that I read in the newsletter, in like the July newsletter, that some of the housing is going to be opening up in September for like the transition housing for like different parts of the state, for like going
That's
from
right.
like care to like needing a place to live, so that someone can basically stabilize and get their mental health and their substance use treatment all together without having to worry too much about where they're going to stay at night, or how they're going to like shower, or basic needs and stuff like that. And I see that there's one that's going to be opening up in Denver, and there's like there's like a couple others that are going to be opening up. I don't know the total, but like I think it's like 4 or 12 or something like that. And I don't see one in Aurora, where I feel like one is much needed. I mean, I know that Aurora Mental Health is working on its 24-hour reconstruction of its campus to include a 24-hour like detox and crisis services in one location, with also client housing and a medical clinic over on Potomac and Mississippi. And it's going to be like a year or two for it to be built. But I think centralizing all those types of services in one location for other cities and counties would allow for better adherence to care and the care coordination that someone might need, going from detox over to like a medical clinic to get like medical detox or whatever, or to just see someone for like, even if it's like ice frost feet like during winter or something.
Mhm.
And then being able to like go over and possibly get housed in like a temporary or like or housing or apartment that they can, as long as they're getting services from that mental health center, can be able to like access the housing that's there. But they have to be a client of
Right.
the mental health center to like,
To be able to get it.
exactly. And I think there needs to be more effort to not just have the care councils and advisory councils, but for those locations of like 24-hour crisis services all being in one area. And I also know that UC Health is or just recently opened their own psychiatric facility. So we have been getting some clients that are going over there from our team. I work on the Ascent team with first step
Okay.
with psychosis. So it's like I work with these kids like every day, and someone who has schizoaffective disorder myself and has been a peer specialist for 13 years. I work steadily with like all the changes that we see in young people from 15 to 29 and their needs. I know that there's a statewide consensus of first episode psychosis programs, and I think they're being invested more so than other programs because it's the cost savingness of not having so many people with schizophrenia in the hospitals or rotating back and forth through the doors. So it's like programs like ours work. We have like close to 60 clients now where we have like 4 Ascent teams in the state of Colorado at our location. We run 4, we're a big staff. And I just think those things would help with care coordination and also crisis services at the same time. And there needs to be more availability of Narcan and also needle exchange. I know there's some needle disposal sites and stuff at Colorado Health Network where I get some of my HIV care and management, but there needs to be some like safe places to dispose of, you know, equipment or needles. And there needs to be some place where people can get, you know, basic services for healthcare too. Like, you know, even if it's just like condoms and lubricants
Right.
and whatever,
Just
like in one
The
area.
basics, yep.
Yeah. And there needs to be like a place like at our building, we started what we call the Ascent Market, which is basically a food pantry, clothing pantry, and toiletries, and basically a bunch of everything for basic needs in one office that we donate or we pick up or people.
I just toured it
Oh, okay. So
and it's empty right now. So I
so
volunteered BHA and CDHS to do a drive to refill it.
yeah, so I would basically say things like that are things that could be used to allow for the better improvement of care services and crisis services, is to have those basic needs met, such as housing and so forth. Sorry for being long-winded.
No, that's great. And thanks for mentioning that. And Kelly is the bomb. That's who I was with. And I think you're bringing up a really good point that in Aurora, but in a lot of communities, people are doing amazing work and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's giving part of what the BHA does is
Michelle, we just lost you for some reason. I'm not sure if it's your headphones.
so they can spend the money in the way they think is most appropriate. Is really the business model we're looking at, that we're not going to provide direct care. We're not going to provide direct services. That's competing with people who already do that in the community. Our role is to regulate and license and fund and put parameters and accountabilities around it and get a lot of money to them. Go find every federal dollar we can get, find every state dollar we can get, and really get that money into community. And Aurora Mental Health Center is a great example. By the way, BHA gave them about $4 million towards the new campus through a grant program. So that's an example of the kind of work we're doing. But thank you. I know someone's taking notes. You had a lot of good ideas there, Seth. So thank you.
So Commissioner, I have, if I could
Anybody
say,
else have any thoughts?
yeah, this is Rob. I was going to ask something else. One of the things when it comes to care coordination and crisis services, I've been struggling with one of the facilities in El Paso County that I oversee with our partnership. And one great thing.
Well, can I ask a question then?
Yes.
I've been hearing over the couple months I've been here, a lot of different communities asking to have special emphasis on them. Like, could you prioritize acute youth? Could you prioritize veterans with suicidal ideation? Could you prioritize youth that are stuck in hospitals? Can you, a lot of those type of asks. And the idea is we're trying to build a system that will help all those groups, like all those groups. But, in the meantime, while we're developing the system, people are struggling. People are in a bad place. So I wanted to know from you guys, are there communities that we should have on our radar that maybe we don't have on our radar right now? I'll give an example. The disability community is very well organized and very clear on their needs. That's an example of one that we have our eyes on. But are there other ones that we might not be having engagement with that you think we should be?
Well, I would say, so I have a couple things, but I would say the offender population, justice involved population, for sure, there's a lot of mixed messages going on with the offender population, how we'll work with them. When the ASAM came out and Medicaid started covering treatment, we were under the impression.
Okay. If no one has an idea now, would love to hear from you. Through Angelina, let us know so we can add that to our lens.
Angelina, can you hear me?
Let me ask
She's not here.
one more question if I have a chance.
I don't think her headphones are
In
working.
terms of, I know you guys are all over the state, which is fantastic. That's the benefit of this type 2 board. Are there any issues from rural communities or people with lived experience that we should be looking at, or that might be different than the urban areas? So is there anything that we should make sure we know as we're building our systems?
So I know there's a couple
Particularly to
other,
rural.
there's a couple other hands up. Megan, I just sent a message to see if you can you text Michelle and let her know that her headphones aren't working?
Yep, I was just looking to see if I have her
If
number.
no one has an idea now, I'd love to hear,
Yeah.
again, feedback on that would be fantastic.
Well, somebody's messaging her.
I can see some things in chat, but I can't read what they are because
Yeah.
I can't see them. Anything in chat I should comment on?
Commissioner Barnes, I don't think you can hear us.
Are your headphones on, Michelle?
You can't hear us. Yeah,
Oh, sorry about that.
there we go. Now can you hear us?
Yes, how long have I been quiet?
Well, we can hear you, but you couldn't hear us respond, the members responding to your questions.
I am so sorry. Thank you for stopping me. So I'll be quiet and just listen.
Well, one of the things that was decided is you're going to give $1 million to El Paso County is what we heard, so no, I'm just kidding. Carolyn, you had your hand up?
Yes, I do. What I want to share, Michelle, is that I work for Rocky Mountain Crisis Partners on the Colorado support line. And I can definitely speak to how, for over a year now, we've been sitting with people more and more who are suicidal. But what I want to say in crisis management and care coordination is that sometimes to have a lot of different options is empowerment. And so, having the ability to speak to a clinician, to speak to a peer, to speak to who we feel is going to be most supportive, to go to a walk-in center if that's what we feel we need. So I think we've done really good there. And what I really think, what I'd really like to say is I can speak to the point of our success in pure specialists in talking to people who are in suicidal crisis, but we support people with all life stressors. And, there are many crises beyond just life or death that people endure. And so I could probably speak to that, but what I understand is that you want these talked about or discussed in other meetings, these two items of care coordination and suicide or crisis, what am I saying? So yeah, crisis services.
Okay, we, thank you, Carolyn. We have Jamie and then Tosh.
Thank you. I'll be really quick. Thank you, Commissioner Barnes, for being here and for soliciting input on these very important items. I think it would be really helpful, at least for me anyway, to have a little more structure around this discussion in terms of what feedback you're soliciting, what areas we have to actually influence change in. So I know that the rules, the stakeholder feedback in the rule package has already been closed. So while we don't have a lot of influence on the rules at this point, what do we have influence on? Is it the, policies or operationalizing the rules, or what are those specific areas so that we can maybe focus our comments and our feedback in a really productive way? And one thing that would help me as well, and I bring this up all the time, so this won't be a surprise to you all, is how are these discussions happening with healthcare policy and financing and the raise, so that we can ensure that there is consistency across the BHA for both care coordination and crisis services, as well as everything that's happening with behavioral health. Because we know that the healthcare policy and financing is actively working on ACC 3.0. BHA is moving in the direction of the rule packages and developing the BOSSOs and everything the BHA is supposed to be doing. But how are those coming together? And then I think once we know a little bit more about that, then our feedback can certainly be, really targeted and really focused. We could throw a million things at you today, and everything that's been discussed has been fantastic and truly needed, because this group does an amazing job of sharing what is needed out there. But to what end, right? Like, what is going to be how is this feedback going to be used and incorporated, and where do we actually make the impact? So that would just be my request for the next time we have this discussion.
That's a great question. And in fact, I don't think we have to wait till the next time, because you do have the report due September 1. Megan, is that something we could put together on points of influence and what they are, so we can do exactly what was just asked? Don't ask for feedback on things that have already been decided. Like, that's not helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can put
I
some
think we
thought
could get
into
some, yeah, maybe we can get something out in between the next meeting so you guys can have some time to think about it. So that's a great suggestion. Regarding HCPF, we are working unbelievably closely with HCPF. I think my afternoon is a meeting on, a lot of us on the call with HCPF, talking about their new RAY structure and our new BOSSO structure. Not the details of it, but it's the big picture. What are we trying to accomplish? How do we make this work for all Coloradans? How do we not create a system that's even more confusing? I feel like those conversations are going great. I am sure they have been happening for a year, but I can say in the last couple months, it's at a much higher intensity now, because we need to make decisions and move on. So I won't speak for the other BHA employees, but I feel like we spend an increasing amount of time with HCPF on this, particularly Kristen Laura, who runs all of our technology, and a lot of the integration on this is the answer is partly technology and systems and infrastructure. So great question.
Tasha has her hand up, or has their hand up. Sorry, Tosh.
It's okay.
I just wanted to jump in really quick. What I started to say, commissioners, when you asked about specific groups, I wanted to say that the offender population is a group that is getting mixed messages now. You know, we were, when ASAM first came into play, we were saying that judges can't court order somebody into treatment because they are not clinicians and they're court ordering people into levels of care. I know from a lived experience, like I could tell you, you don't want somebody telling you where you need to go that's law enforcement and not a clinician. And so that seems to be a little confusing still in the communities and with justice involved individuals. I would also just throw out, I really appreciate your predecessor said that some of the, not the best proposals would be, but the most needed proposals would be funded. And we've seen that happen. I appreciate that. The other thing I could tell you that some of the frustrations we've had is there is funding given to specific organizations that are supposed to be in. Angelina helped me navigate this with Mark Condijani. I'm going to mess up his name, but we met, and sometimes the funding is given, but the provider doesn't have staff and is not providing the service. And so I don't know what, I don't feel like that's their fault because they can't hire the people or the people aren't available, but it's also leaving a huge gap in need and a huge gap in services. And so we're definitely having some issues in that department, but that could wait. I just want to throw that on your radar and talk about the justice involved in that.
If I could just comment on that, this is a huge issue right now because working with the justice involved population involves all kinds of agencies to get together, as well as the judicial branch, as well as every single judge in the state of Colorado. You know, what a surprise we don't all have the same opinion. That issue about mandatory, I'm looking for the right word, where we can mandate treatment for someone with substance abuse disorders, highly debated right now. So I think the confusion is it's still being debated and there's no conclusion. And if Ryan, are you on the phone or someone from the Ledge policy group, is there still an opportunity for input or feedback?
They are not. We do not have someone from the Ledge group with us today, Michelle.
All right, we can follow up though and let you know if there's an opportunity. That could be one of the points, Megan, maybe that we can let them know.
So I'll throw this out there to you. This became such a heated debate with us, with somebody coming out of jail or prison, and a stipulation of their release is to do treatment. And so this became because they technically a lot of times would not qualify, say for 3.5 level of care, ASAM level of care, and then that ties HCPUF's not going to pay if they don't qualify, right?
Right.
So this got so heated, I Instagrammed Dr. Mealy, who helped pen the ASAM, and it was like, dude, give us clarification on this because we're all over the place and we're having a civil war in our agency. And technically, he's saying, and he's one of the authors, and we went to the ASAM conference, we're hearing that it's 5 days that the ASAM is good for. And so, they're saying 5 days is the here and now. I know there's a new ASAM book coming up, but it really does. It's really hard for us to put somebody in a level of care because they're mandated to a level of care when they don't meet that level of care. And so I just, like I said, this doesn't have to be solved now. I know Tosh, they've had their hand up and I want to make sure Tosh gets a chance to talk, but I want to throw that on your radar.
Yeah, yes, please, because next week, Summer Gathercole and I are going to be in DC getting new commissioner training on everything on SAMHSA. So thank you for bringing that up. I'll see if I can get some clarity on that.
Tasha
Conquer here, they, them. I want to put something on your radar. El Paso County as a whole, because El Paso County has rural areas. I live in Fountain, as well as I've lived in Yoder and Calhan and all those rural areas. And here's the problem is in El Paso County, yes, they have the agencies for Colorado Springs, but they don't have the staff. If you're 10 miles outside of Colorado Springs, you don't get services, you get dropped. I was dropped from Independence Center because I live in Fountain and they don't have a giver or a provider to provide my in-home services. That's going on a lot, even when it comes to transportation, non-medical transportation. I had to jump through hoops just to be able to get Z-Trip because Inveda, who operates the non-medical transportation, won't serve my area because they don't have drivers out here. Like, there is a lot of problems going on in El Paso County, and these agencies are getting our funding, are getting the federal funding and state funding money, but what are they doing with it? Because the people who are in need of services are still being in need of services even when they're getting this grant money.
Yep.
This is another issue. El Paso County in care coordination with the county jail. This is lived experience. This just happened to me. I was falsely arrested in February, and I was left in medication withdrawal. I do take benzodiazepines, and the county jail did not follow the benzodiazepine like withdrawal protocol. Yeah, it's just the county jail, the state, like there's a disconnect between the counties with all of it, the criminal justice, the care coordination, crisis services. Like, there is that gap because what's going on in a state level, the county doesn't know. So
right,
there's a big gap there. The funding, the lack of employees to provide the amount of services that the residents of El Paso County need. And that's a barrier to accessing care, is we don't have that care to access because of the lack of providers. So that's another thing. Like, when it comes to mental health and the criminal justice system, it all needs to come together, because that's a whole nother issue.
Tasha, can I ask a question? Is some of the issue because it's going cross county, or is it all of this that you're talking about is within El Paso County?
All of this is within El Paso County. Okay. I have done feet work. I engage a lot with other constituents and stakeholders, and I just ask, like, they call me, they're like, okay, what resources can I get? I was like, I can't tell you because I'm fighting for the same thing. So I'm hearing the same thing. People in Colorado Springs can get their services, but people in the rural areas out 10 miles outside of Colorado Springs don't get them. So that's, and then you can't even afford to live in Colorado Springs. And that's why we have a homeless issue. Like, there's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. That puts a real face to what's going on.
Appreciate
that, Tasha.
So, Commissioner, I would just say that I've been working with Angelina to try to have you visit El Paso County, because it's very big, and it's a large city for having some of the small town issues that it's having. And Z-Trip, Tasha mentioned Z-Trip, that's the cab service there. And we're also, like, as a provider, having to use independent AMR facilities and a lot of independent secure transport. So there's a lot of need and not a lot of, I guess I would say, there's not a lot of sensitivity to the Medicaid population. And then, so sorry not to get off on a rant. Carolyn, you had your hand up.
Rob, you've done that. I want to let you. Let me see if we can pick another date sooner rather than tying it to the thing, and I'll just plan a whole day in El Paso. And if there's other things, I think that would be helpful, because it sounds like you have some unique stuff going on there.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on Tasha. Like, for years, like, the only way people would be able to get help is if they were suicidal, and then they went into a hospital and sat for hours to be evaluated and not to receive the services that they needed. Now people have voice, and people have partnerships that they create with providers. And the cool thing about it is that we teach people as peer specialists, if there's something you feel you need, you have a right to ask for that, and it should be given, right? Versus having to say you're suicidal, or having to wait till you're in such a traumatic state to get the help that you need. And so we encourage people to voice out what they feel is going to be most helpful for them. And if something doesn't work, that's okay. We have other options. Like I was saying earlier, the more options we have, the more empowerment there is, the more choices we have to see what is going to work. But I also know that when people do ask for what they feel they need, they do get that pushback, and most often the pushback comes from not being, the insurance won't cover it, or they're told they're really not in need, or you know, that they're just going to have to make do. And so, you know, a lot of times this causes people to reviticize back into systems because they're not getting what they're asking for. And some of it has to do with the insurance feeling, or the insurance or the agency feeling like they really don't need this service. And it could all fall on the evaluations that they're receiving. And so anyway, that's just my frustration. That's in the Denver metro area, but I also
Yeah.
hear this across the state of Colorado.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for that observation.
So I'm gonna pass the mic to Megan, and then we're gonna go into break because it sounds like we're behind.
Thank you, Rob. That's actually what I was going to jump on with. You all, this is such valuable discussion. And I think this is exactly these discussions. This is exactly where we need to be going with this group. This is exactly what we need from you. And so
Exactly. Amen. Amen.
100% appreciate this discussion, want to have more discussions. I really don't want to stop this discussion right now, but we are behind on the agenda. We do have a presenter starting at 11. And I know you all have been sitting here with us since 9 a.m. And so I'm hoping we can take a 5-minute break before they come on, if you're okay with that. And then in our upcoming meetings, continue this way. This is so productive. This is so helpful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Very much. Thank you for the conversation, everyone. This was very valuable to me.
Okay, so break, ready, break. Jelena, does that mean we're gonna coordinate an earlier visit?
So, Commissioner Barnes is pretty good about managing her schedule. So I know that you had been coordinating with Sonia. She will reach out to Sonia and let Sonia know that you want to coordinate something earlier, and then may just be in touch directly with you to get it figured out.
Okay, and I hope this isn't, I hope this joke is, but can we write a grant to get the commissioner some new headphones? I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, I know we're recording, just kidding.
I'll gift them to her with my family voice council money. I'll get them on Amazon for her, okay? Pay it forward.
I was like, is it me? Can you not hear me?
Rob, I want to tell you thank you so much for bringing up El Paso County. Definitely, thank you.
It's a unique place.
We want to give folks like 2 more minutes and then
Okay.
we can jump in and get started. Okay, so at 5 after.
I think that gives us some time to catch up, Angelina. If we take off that one part of the agenda I messaged you about, I think if we start at 11:05, that still gives HMA their allotted amount of time, and then we can use 10 minutes for public feedback because we missed that part. So we'll have to loop back to that, I think is important.
There was one, so what Megan is talking about in terms of messaging me, there was one other thing we wanted to vote on today, which was the BHAAC public feedback form. But since we don't have quorum, I know everybody needs to weigh in and make sure that it's okay to move that to the next section. But it feels like, again, we haven't been able to vote, so that might be something that we can easily move. Dr. Rabb, you want to bring us back officially from break, and then I can.
Yep. All right,
Introduce?
so let's move forward to the next item.
Okay, so we have universal contracting provisions. Let me spotlight my interpreter. Great, so folks, BHAAC members should have received this a couple different times in terms of homework or pre-work for the session. There was a video and some slide content. I think there was also a 1-pager, if I remember correctly. So today we're going to have Gina Lasky give us a little presentation on this, and then hopefully have a little time for Q&A at the end. So Gina, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself. Reminding that speaking slowly is important. We have an interpreter. Try to take a couple of seconds pause between slides so that people can watch the interpreter and read the slides.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Gina Lasky, and I work with Health Management Associates. We are a consulting firm that works mostly in the public sector behavioral health. I'm also a psychologist in the state of Colorado. I'm very happy to be here and to help talk about one of the areas of reform for the Behavioral Health Administration. I think you all have received a video that explained the universal contract provisions, but today I wanted to give a short overview of those and also have opportunities for you to ask questions about the sort of status of universal contracting. All right, we can go to the next slide. This is a very busy slide, so I will try to give some history and context and give you some time to digest it as well. When Governor Polis appointed the governor's behavioral health task force, one of the things that came up in the task force frequently was the complexity of behavioral health contracts. And for any of you who are seeking services or who have been providing services in the state, this is not news to you. We have many behavioral health programs and services funded across the state, across different agencies. In fact, 14 different agencies funding behavioral health, different buckets of money going to different providers for different services. And each of those contracts comes with its own program requirements, its own data requirements, its own way of defining what behavioral health service means. And what we wanted to do was try to reduce all of these arrows. The arrows in the graphic are really designed for representing both money flowing to a provider and program and also contract. So if you're a community mental health center, you contract with many, many agencies. If you're an independent provider, same thing, you might contract with many different agencies, and those contracts might look really different. And then we have in Colorado intermediaries, which are these things in the middle. So our administrative service organizations, our managed service organizations, and our regional accountable entities. So in those cases, the state agency, so HCPF or Medicaid for the RAE and CDHS for the ASO and the MSO are putting dollars through an intermediary, and then that intermediary is contracting with providers. So that creates even more complexity in our contracting system. So we were asked to help the state think about how to fix this, and that was part of the model of the BHA. All right, thank you. So the idea that came out of the model for the BHA was to actually create a new process for contracting, which is not creating a single contract, but using the idea of universal contract provisions across agencies. So taking all of these different agencies and saying, let's look at the core contract components and let's standardize them, and then create universal contract provisions. So whether you're Department of Education or Department of Public Health and Environment or CDHS, you're going to use the same universal provisions when you're contracting for behavioral health. So each would continue to contract with providers, but the contracts would look more similar between state agencies and also with the intermediaries. Again, the administrative service organizations, managed service organizations, and regional accountable entities, they would also use those universal provisions. And if we go forward one more slide, what that does, if we can try to create this standard set of contract provisions, is streamline the contract process, hopefully reducing administrative burden for providers. Also, really one of the goals of the task force with the BHA was to raise standards across all behavioral health programs. So making sure that there's a consistent and improved set of standards for quality. That informs also core data collection and sharing of requirements for within contracts across programs, improving our understanding of financial data across programs, and our standardization of standards around things like equity, diversity, and inclusion. So the goal is really standardization and improving quality. So HMA has been involved in helping the BHA with implementation of the universal contract provisions. And we've been working on both technical changes in terms of what the draft provisions could look like. That was due to the BHA by July 1, 2023. And we did engage stakeholders in the process. So we did 2 phases of stakeholder engagement. We did one phase where we met with state agencies, all of those intermediaries, providers, advocates, individuals with lived experience. We had open forums. We asked people what was working well in contracting and what was not working well in contracting, and just explored the conversation with them about universalizing provisions. And then in phase 2, we came back to the same people with a draft set of provisions and got their feedback on the actual draft set of provisions. And I'll just say again that the group that I work with is Health Management Associates, otherwise known as HMA. So we did that stakeholder engagement for the state, and then we shared that feedback back to the state Behavioral Health Administration, as well as HCPF, both of whom are charged by statute in helping to lead the universal contract provisions. And then I'll add right now where we're at is the provisions have been drafted. There's still a lot to change that both BHA and HCPF are working with other agencies and stakeholders to continue to enhance that work. It's a big change, and so it's going to take some time to really iron out all of the specifics, and that work is started. HMA is also supporting some new working groups that will dive into specific provisions, one around minimum data reporting and the other around programmatic requirements, and trying to further streamline those to reduce burden and improve quality. And I think with that, I'm happy to take questions or hear comments.
I can't see hands up unless you change the screen, whoever has control of that.
I don't think we have any hands up. Oh, there is one in our attendee list. Chris, I wasn't sure if you were calling out yourself because you should be a panelist or if you wanted to unmute and talk.
Neither of those. I apologize for the misclick.
Okay, I don't see anything, Dr. Rob, or in the chat either.
Okay, so the last thing I'll say is that if you want to learn more about the universal contract provisions, they are posted on the website of the BHA. You can read the draft provisions, and you can also read frequently asked questions about the universal contract provisions process. And thank you for letting me come for a couple minutes.
All right, thank you. Can we move forward to the next item?
So, Dr. Rob, is it okay if I step in and just talk a little bit about this one?
Yes.
Okay, because this is new. As folks know, we created, right, you created 2 work groups from BHAAC during the last session. One is the report writing group. The second is the children, youth, and families. We sent out, Marina and I sent out a poll to see who wanted to participate in which groups. Thank you for switching the slides, Sarah. So this is just the update from the BHA side. So we do have the list of members who volunteered for that group. We have not sent out a doodle poll to get that first one scheduled. The priority obviously was the report writing work group, since that's due very shortly. So we will work on getting that up and running. And then kind of as we've discussed here, what are the priority topics that the BHA is going to bring to that group to talk about, right? And then the report writing group, I was hoping someone who's in that group could give an update, but just for everyone who's on to know, Y'all have had one meeting so far. The ongoing meetings are weekly on Mondays from 10 to 10:55. The BHA will work on getting those meetings on our public event calendar because they're supposed to be. And then we had talked about having a draft of the plan ready for full BHAAC review by August. So does anyone from the report writing group want to give an update besides what I put on the slide?
Carolyn, would you like to comment on the report writing?
Yes, so I can definitely give a little bit. We just had our first meeting yesterday, and where we got a shared folder that we're going through. I'm definitely reading on the last report that was given. And so we are working towards creating a format of structure right now. And so like I got a lot of ideas going on in my head. And there are, let me see if I can find it real quick. Let me see. I'm so sorry. I think one of the, like what we're working on is there's three things that we're basically going to be working on in the requirements, and I'm trying to find those three things.
Tasha Conker here. I can jump in with that. That's gonna be
Sure.
Care coordination, crisis management, and I believe the other one was community. I don't know. Was it corrections? Hold on.
Mhm. So what we're going to be doing is everybody's going to be reading and reviewing documents. And then Raquel is going to be working on a draft of the skeleton overview for us so that we can begin to fill it in.
Okay, if that's it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
Dr. Rob,
Okay.
Seth has his hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, just quickly, like, how many people are on the working group, and like, who are some of the people, if like we want to like offer some suggestions, or because like I'm already a part of like the executive group and the governance group, and like I just don't, I'm not the best at writing reports, so but I might have like issues or ideas to like suggest or whatever, but
Sure. So you're always welcome to suggest, Seth. I know we have stipulations on what we need to write in. We're going to be doing a letter. And the thing is like, we're going to write a draft. And when we get it all done, we are going to bring it to you guys probably in September so that we can figure out, you know, anything you need to add it, anything you think that is pertinent, what you feel might be helpful, what you're not interested in seeing in it. So just to get your feedback and your insight in what you think. So we're not going to leave the committee out or the council out. We're going to definitely put it together and then we'll get some feedback.
is there like 4 or 5 people on the committee, the work group, or like is there enough
Yeah.
people on the work group?
Yeah, there's me and Tasha are on there, and then there's a few others. I think Raquel is on there, and so there are a few others. I think it was just kind of short because people are on vacation and stuff right now.
Right.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure there's enough like support because it's a big thing we have to get done and
So I can tell you, Dr. Oberly, Tasha, Bob, Raina, Raquel, and you, Carolyn.
okay,
Those are the folks who volunteered.
okay, good. That's it.
thank you, Seth.
I'm just gonna add on to that stuff. And anybody on the council, if you guys want on your free time to read over the report and offer any suggestions why we're doing this, and then just email us or whatever, that would be great. I just trust and hope that you guys believe in all of us and that, and like I said, if you want to read through it and add your input, go ahead. Cause like I said, we're all a team and that's how we all work together and we want to get everybody's input. So yeah, thank you.
Dr. Ron Lee, your hand is up.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a quick question about the Children, Youth, and Families work group. So last meeting, I volunteered and was voted to be our representative with Children, Youth, and Families. I thought that would meant to be a liaison between the Advisory Council and Children, Youth, and Families, and that would bring back information to the BHAAC. Is there a separate working group, or is that the same role?
So a liaison is not the same thing as the work group, right? The work groups that I'm talking about that I'm displaying the slide for right now are subgroups, sub-work groups of BHAAC itself. So for example, the Children, Youth, and Families work group of BHAAC reports to and is responsible, right? You folks hold that work group accountable. Members of the public can attend those meetings, but essentially that work group will focus on giving, not advice, advising, there we go. Advising the commissioner and BHA staff on things related to children, youth, and families. That is different from being a liaison that was identified. And I'm using the language that you folks had selected, I believe, to attend a different council or board or task force meeting outside of BHAAC. And Dr. Ron Lee, I know you were nominated to do Children, Youth, and Families. I need to connect with you because there's lots of groups not run by the BHA that are related to children, youth, and families. And so you and I need to figure out which one of those are you supposed to be going to.
Sounds great. I just don't want to miss where I'm supposed to be. So thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Also, we talked in the bylaws committee or the governance subcommittee work group or whatever that that the liaison or the person that would attend the outside councils or committees or entities or whatever you want to say, that they would basically be there, but they wouldn't represent the BHA or the BHAAC unless they were like voted into that council as a member of that council. Then they would be on that council and then come back to report from things that we might need to know about that council. But we were really kind of like when we were discussing it, just about like not representing in an official capacity. Like we can represent as ourselves, or we can basically show up as a guest who's also on the BHA council to like find out information and you know, provide feedback and stuff like that, because there were some issues with kind of like, you know, are we there as ourselves? Are we there as an official capacity of the BHAAC? Are we there to like vote? Are we there to listen? Are we there, you know? And I mean, Tasha, you could speak better to this than I can, but I think that's kind of like what we put in the bylaws as something that we were talking about.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. I'll take a look at the bylaws. Tasha, I think you're muted here.
Thank you. I just want to add a little bit of clarification on this. I do know that when we discussed that, we, in these liaison positions that we've been appointed to, or voted in on for like BPAC for me with the recovery liaison and with mental health, child, youth and families. We are not representing the BHA. I believe we are a liaison for BHAAC, but we have nothing to do. We're not representing the BHA in any way. It is us. And I believe with our appointed positions with that we were voted in on, that is, we were there as a liaison for BHAAC. I believe is what we discussed. If anybody else was in that meeting and can chime in on that.
So I want to be super, super clear, just like you, Tasha. Absolutely, BHAAC members voted to have representatives from BHAAC attend outside meetings. And my understanding was the purpose of that was to have those then representatives or liaisons, as you're calling them, come back to BHAAC and give updates on what's happening in these other spaces. That does not mean that you will get a seat on that other board. That does not mean that you are a member of that task force, right? Whatever it is you're elected to, you are essentially joining as a member of the public to see and hear and bring back the updates of what's going on. I think, Seth, you said this earlier. If you apply to be a member of that board or task force or whatever, or someone elects you, then you are both a member of that board and a member of this board. So that can happen. I don't think that's any of the situations that we're in right now necessarily, because Tasha, I know that you do participate in those other meetings. Are you a member or do you just already go?
I don't know. I just show up and learn. Okay. Like all this stuff was like, I just showed up to like get in the mix. And then I'm like, oh, what's this? So I don't really know. I have to get with Bob with that and talk to him to get clarification.
That's why I'm telling you. So if us electing liaisons does not affect any other boards.
Exactly.
Right. So you are showing up as a member of the public to hear what they're talking about, to see what they're working on, and then you will bring those updates back to BHAAC. So that's where, because I think there was a little bit of confusion when we first started talking about this, about like formal letters being sent to people about things, and that's not, we can't, the BHA can't force other boards to accept our member recommendations. So that's why it'll essentially be like folks joining as members of the public. Any questions or comments about that?
This is Raina. I guess I'm on, where I'm a liaison, I'm also on the board. I don't know if that makes any difference.
I think if you're both, I wouldn't be concerned about it. You just know, Raina, that you're wearing different roles depending on which space you're in, right?
Right.
Like you have been doing. But we can talk more about it if you want to. I think you're fine. You know, you show up to BHAAC and you're a BHAAC member, you show up to the other board and you're their board member.
Right. Yeah, they just, the other board, I just report things that are going on with the BHAAC.
Yeah. And then you'll do the same here.
And when will that start?
That I do need to talk to Bob and Raquel about. It can really start, I mean, if you're, I think what we're trying to figure out is when we want to start doing updates in these sessions. So that can start soon. Can start as soon as we get it on the agenda.
I think it would be good to like have like a 3-minute update from these 3 boards we appointed people as liaisons to, like at the next September meeting or whatever. I think that would be good, like 3 to 5 minutes for each of these that we voted on and appointed someone to. anything sooner would be great, but like, you know, if it's going to be during the actual BHAAC meetings, I think it should come somewhere with 3 to 5 minute updates for those 3 we specifically appointed to.
I'm good with that. Any opposition to Seth's? We're not doing votes. There's no votes happening because we don't have a quorum. But since I usually make the first draft of the agenda, I'm happy to do that. And we can test it out and see how it goes.
Sounds good.
All right, Dr. Rob, I'm turning it back to you. Thanks for letting me take over for a minute.
Okay. All right, so what's the next item?
This is the one I thought we could move to next time since we don't have a quorum to vote.
Okay,
This and the slide content here, just so you members know, is exactly what I sent in the email. So you can look it over before the next time we meet. If folks have strong feelings around let's vote virtually, we can do that too. But I know we can't like actually vote in the meeting on the updated language right now since we don't have quorum.
okay. I think Seth's gonna reach out to Bob and Raquel on updates and Tosh's as well, I think, and then we'll just see what they want to do. But I say voting virtually is fine with me if it's fine with if everybody else is cool with it. So what's the next?
We actually, Angelina, before you get started with the equity plan, can we hop back to public comment? We skipped over that, so I just wanted to ensure that we got to that in our agenda.
Okay, yeah, we were supposed to do that right after break. That's my fault.
That's okay.
Okay, so let's open it up.
I don't see anyone raising their hand. I think this is the lowest attendance of attendees I've ever seen at BHAAC, which is very surprising. Looks like Tasha has their hand up, but I still don't have any other folks.
I just want to thank Rob for doing a great job today. That's exactly what I want to say, for picking this up and picking up the slack. Let's do snaps for him, like Bob would say. So I just want to give a shout out to him. He did an awesome job today, and I appreciate you very much, and everybody else too.
Thank you, thank you. I definitely have a new respect for Bob. It's hard to keep it. Thank you, I appreciate that. If there's no public comment, doesn't look like it. I would also say Dr. Ron Lee put summertime. I think that's it. I also think that as we become more organized and know exactly what we're advising on, I think people will start to catch on that we're advising and we're actually in the mix. And I think that will be helpful, and people will find that intriguing as well. So we can move forward if there's something else.
It's the last thing. Sarah's going to help me out and pull the slides back up. Megan had mentioned this in the beginning. So the BHA has released its inaugural equity action plan. And I just want to explain to folks like this. We came up really quickly on the governor's deadline, which is why this is the first time you're hearing about it. So the good news is this is not a final draft of anything. This is a living document. We will continue to work on it. And part of some of the major pieces in this plan are related to engaging with BHAAC and engaging with other community members with lived experience to figure out how to inform the plan as we develop it alongside the development of the BHA. So Please don't feel like this is the be all end all of anything. The plan was created with lots of work from folks who were a part of the Office of Behavioral Health before it became the Behavioral Health Administration. Folks who are internal to the BHA on our equity, diversity, inclusion matrix team is what they're called here. And we took as many pieces from the strategic plan as possible because we knew that we were able to get public comment on the strategic plan, and there were a lot of equity components in that. So essentially, we're trying to make our pieces of work overlap and coincide so that we're not just piling on extra efforts for everybody, but also staying true to our values as the BHA. Okay, Sarah, can you, so I'm going to do like super high level overview of this, and then I will put the link to the public document in the chat so folks can see it from there. Our comms team has been amazing and made sure that we're putting up links to Google Docs now instead of PDFs because screen readers don't like those. So if folks for any reason do want a PDF, let me know. Okay, so the background on the requirement of the Equity Action Plan. In August 2020, Governor Polis signed this executive order that essentially made it a priority for state departments to operationalize equity into their practice. Plans are not submitted to the Gov's office. They are submitted to the Department of Personnel and Administration, who then receives yearly updates. So for folks who know about the big, most folks here know about the big transition from the Office of Behavioral Health to the BHA, you may have seen or known that that previous equity plan was a part of CDHS, or the Colorado Department of Human Services. Now that we are the BHA, it was time for us to develop our own outside of CDHS. So I just want to reiterate that the plan itself is really trying to ground the BHA into our values and our commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, also known as JEDI. We stay committed to that bold vision of behavioral health and a system that supports that, and whole person health and care coordination and all the things that we've been talking about. So in terms of how the plan is organized, there's 3 priority areas. Internal, which is everything happening as we operationalize the BHA. Cross-agency, which means between state departments. And then there's community, which is folks with lived experience, community providers. That's a big bucket. Okay, Sarah, can you hit me to the next slide? Thank you. Okay, so this is just a little reminder. This visual was in the BHA's strategic plan. And this was our vision for the behavioral health ecosystem and how we want behavioral health to look in the state of Colorado, where we're addressing things like social and institutional inequities. We're addressing things like living conditions. We're supporting community-based prevention and health. And then by doing that, there's on the right-hand side, the lighter blue circles. This is how we build whole person health, right? The continuum of care. So this is just a quick reminder because, again, we don't want an equity action plan to be out of alignment with the BHA's values and goals. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so here is how we build equity into our work. So you'll see the ecosystem is inside this picture. And so I really wanted to think about how do we build this healthy ecosystem knowing that equity is a core value of the BHA? And so when I think in pictures, so y'all are getting pictures with me today. So I think about the priority of internal BHA equity work and how it's the soil that provides the nutrients and the solid earth for equitable projects and practices to grow. And then I think about the BHA and our state agency partners and how it's our role to build the infrastructure that supports not just the ground and the soil, but the space for those equity practices to grow. And then really, I mean, one could say the most important part or one of the most important parts is the sun, which is our community and our community members, our folks with lived experience like you, who really provide the knowledge and the expertise and the information that we need to grow our equity practice into flourishing plants, right? So this is my metaphor for how I envision equity work to happen at the BHA with our partners and within our communities. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so we were kind of limited. We had to pick 3 key milestones. A lot of them are focused on the internal piece, kind of as we've been it's been a theme today as we've talked things through. You folks know that we really need to figure out how to operationalize the BHA. And so that's why the 3 key milestones are related to our internal practice. I'll move next into sort of what the other pieces look like. But so we have increased leadership and staff diversity by 25% over the next 2 years. Being a new administration, we don't have data on what our numbers even are right now. So we're working on that in the meantime. We want to increase our employee engagement survey results for honest and open communication. The last time that was scored was we got a 31%. We'd like to increase it to 35 over the next year. And then in the first year of this plan, each of the divisions or work units within the BHA, so each of our individual teams, will create specific equity and engagement approaches that will include their own outcomes and metrics. So how are they going to measure whether they're successfully engaging community or successfully working with folks with lived experience towards that goal of co-creation? I'm going to pause for a second and see if anyone has any questions. I promise I will get out of here. I will be done before my deadline when we end at 12. Tasha?
I just have a quick question. When are the new rules and revisions being implemented where they're taking place throughout the state?
Well, that's a good question. Megan, are you still on? Can you, I don't know if you know the answer to that. If you don't, can you ping Victoria and see if she can tell us?
January of 2024.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Tasha?
Yes, now I know to not hold anybody at these standards till 2024.
Well, these are just a heads up, these are a little different than rules, right? And this is the internal BHA equity action plan. Part of what's in this plan is how do we work with providers on their equity practice. But you'll see those, Tasha, because I know you will read the whole thing. You'll see those in the individual line items. Okay. Sarah, can you hit me into the next slide? Okay, so here are the much broader kind of goals for each of those 3 levels. So again, internal BHA leadership and staff, we really want to strengthen the equity and engagement practice among our leaders. And we need to standardize our approach to equity. Make sure that everybody in the BHA agrees on what our definition of equity is. We want to incorporate that justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion practice into our internal processes. And we need to establish internal structures that really center and support our equity and engagement practices. For the cross-agency collaboration, so that's with other state agencies, we're looking at advancing our key priorities and establishing a way for us across state agencies to provide equitable and comprehensive services. This should sound really familiar from the strategic plan, hopefully. We want to work with them to promote a culturally competent and diverse behavioral health workforce. As you folks know, we have a whole workforce development team that is focused on this right now, but we want to make sure that we're partnering with our other state agencies as well so that they are doing similar work. And we want to deepen our relationships with our state agency partners so that we are all in agreement on how we push these equity values and JEDI practices and goals forward together. On the community side, we need to be consistent in our communication and engagement with all external stakeholders, not just BHAAC, but all of the folks who are working with us as lived experience members of the community and just communities in general. Those need to be accessible and inclusive. We need to ensure that all people in Colorado, especially Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, are represented in our behavioral health data and its interpretation. Folks know that typically data equals money when you're looking at government systems. And so we need to figure out how we really do community-based participatory research. We should not be collecting data. We should not be collecting information on communities or community members unless they're involved in that from the beginning. The last one here, we need to broaden and deepen our engagement with community members, especially those who have been historically underrepresented. So those are the super high level pieces of our key objectives. When folks go into the plan, you'll see like there's these sort of each one of these bullet points has its own header. And then there's very specific action items and line items that are like, this is how we're going to meet this goal. This is how we're going to meet this goal. So that's what it'll look like when you open it up. Sarah, can we do the next slide? Okay. Geez, I didn't update this. I'm sorry. That top bullet is supposed to say it went out in the BHA newsletter. So if folks are signed up for the newsletter, you should see a link and copy of it there. Internally, I'm going to be setting up equity office hours to hear from folks across the BHA. What does their equity work look like? What does their engagement work look like? How are they doing it? How do we get to a place where we're all doing it in the same and a similar way, depending on communities we're working with, right? And then there's just information on here. I know it's a word-filled slide. I apologize, about what I'm going to be doing internally to support the implementation of this plan. Also, what are we going to be doing to make those next steps with state agencies work? And specifically for you folks, I wanted to point out by fall of this year, I'm going to schedule ongoing kind of community engagement opportunities for anyone in the public to come and join and talk through pieces of the plan, how we implement the plan, how things should be designed, things like that. We can talk more later, unless anyone has a strong opinion now. I can absolutely bring more information on this plan back to BHAAC. That being said, there's a caveat of, we just heard from Interim Commissioner Barnes today that there are definitely BHA priority areas being crisis services, care coordination, right? Those things, which I know are hot topics that we really want your thoughts on. So equity is absolutely important. I think we all bring that to the table here. But I will take your lead in terms of whether you want to know more or you just want to know when I start holding those open community sessions. And then I think, Sarah, can you go one more? I think that's it. Yep. So that's all I had on the plan.
So Angelina, I can't see if anybody has their hands up, but I do want to just throw this out there, and I know we're so close to ending the meeting, so I don't want to open a can of worms, but I would say this just to the BHA when they're working with communities and cross agency to, if we really want to improve equity, the BHA, I'm just going to say this straightforward, needs to get out of their offices. You guys have done a good job so far of doing some of that. But when we have these virtual meetings, some of the stuff, line staff, they often aren't able to attend these meetings. So to look at, diversity within agencies, it's hard to see that. Also in the community meetings, a lot of time, people who are dealing with poverty or some of the struggles that the BHA's demographic covers are not on Zoom meetings, do not have access to the internet, do not have access to Zoom or understand it. I just think it would be super awesome if the BHA had somebody that went around community to community, like one representative that was kind of like, almost like a sales rep, but just checking in like, hey, how's it going? Who do you have working? Because you're not going to get a picture. And I love Zoom, and I'm glad it happened during COVID, but this has been 100%. It has undone a lot of the progress that was going forward, because it's so easy to just think that we're getting a picture from Zoom. And this is more like a Polaroid, and we actually need like a 360 view, right? And so I just think if the
You accidentally, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they need a representative that is going community to community, and especially in these rural areas, Pueblo, Lamar, Huerfano County, Los Animas County. Colorado is so big, and so many, there's a lot of funding coming into those communities, and we appreciate it. But it would be super helpful to have a lot of checkup, and it's been better than it's ever been. Like I said, thank you to the BHA for coming to Pueblo, because that's pretty rare. But yeah, there's a lot of communities out here that don't understand harm reduction, that don't understand the BHA. They don't understand what they're doing, and just just checking in on the providers and checking in and the idea, like there's a lot of emphasis with the BHA on community, healthcare providers or behavioral healthcare providers, but the mom and pop agencies aren't getting the same love, and some of the smaller agencies aren't getting the same love. And I feel like sometimes we're not even sure what they do, because I know if I'm not sure and they're in my community, the BHA definitely isn't getting a clear picture. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Dr. Rob. Tasha?
I was just gonna say, on the community level, like here in El Paso County, they don't even know what the BHA is. Like we're talking executive directors, like down, I have tried to find working for CDHS to find out if they know or anything. And when you bring it up, because they were like, what's the BHA and how are you getting compensated? I'm like, so county workers don't even know like what's going on with the counties. So I really think like a liaison for each BASO or Ray or whatever. I think that should be something that the BHA should do, is have a liaison to connect the communities with the state, because that's where the gap is. Thank you.
Thanks, Tasha. Any other comments, questions? I see you in the chat, Caroline. Before we end, I think that's the end of our agenda, Dr. Rubb.
All right. Do I need the motion to close the meeting? I don't even know. I've never paid attention to Bob when I'm usually blank by now. No, I'm just kidding. Do I need the motion, or are we good to shut it down?
Motion to end meeting.
Okay, so do I have a motion to end the meeting?
I motion.
I second.
Okay. I'm gonna end with peace out then. Everybody go eat lunch.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you soon.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Rob.